first, and then Melech Moshiach appears and gathers in Israel and builds the temple. Here in Dr. Tzvi Mark's version, we have this charismatic young person, and this is so like the hero of so many of Reb Nachman's stories. Let's go to the first story, The Lost Princess. In The Lost Princess, it's clear that the story is about the redemption of the Shekhinah by the Sheni Malchus, the Prime Minister or the Chancellor, whatever you want to call him, who goes off into the deserts and the wilderness to find the lost princess. This clearly has a messianic thread to it. In the stories of the burgher and the poor man, and other of the earlier stories, there is a very is that a live still or?
I'm trying to get out.
You rolling? So in some of the earlier stories, the Moshiach element, with these strange twists and turns of relationships between, as it were, the prince and the princess, and finding each other and getting separate from each other, there's a very messianic quality to it. But the particular story I would like to focus on is the story of the exchanged children, the Bonim Shenechlefu, one of the last stories of Reb Nachman, which is printed in full in the Essential Rabbi Nachman here, available tonight. The story of the Bonim Shenechlefu, the exchanged children, starts off with this wonderful, incredible plot where the queen has just given birth to a baby, and so has the queen's serving maid, who is not just a simple cleaner but a maid of some status, where the two women, the queen and the maid, have babies at the same time, and the babies are in the same sort of nursery in the palace, and the midwife switches around the babies, and she puts the serving maid's baby in the crib of the son of the king, and vice versa, the prince in the crib of the serving maid's child. And so it goes on until the midwife can't keep the secret, and she reveals that she's done this switch. It's a very embarrassing situation, because here is the presumptive prince and heir to the throne, and rumors are going around the whole country that he's actually the serving maid's son, and the apparent serving maid's son, people are saying, could well be the son of the king. But there's no way to determine what the truth is. They didn't have genetic testing, and you couldn't even talk about the subject. It'd be too embarrassing to the king that such a thing could happen. And if you think it can't, some of you may know the whole story flying around the internet that the one who's in line to the throne after Prince William, Prince Harry, there are many who say that he's down his son by somebody else, and there are very interesting photographs showing the resemblances between him and his presumptive father, not the Prince of Wales. So these things can definitely happen. So all the while that the serving maid's true son is still not come to the throne, there's not too much he can do about it. But the moment he comes to the throne, when the king dies, he immediately starts persecuting the son, the supposed son of the maidservant, who's really the king's true son, and eventually drives him out of the kingdom. And the plot of the story is how the boy gets driven out, and he's so depressed and so broken because he knows the rumors. And he says, it's just not fair. If I'm the king's son, it's certainly not fair. I should be driven out. And if I'm not, why should I be driven out if I'm innocent? And he goes to prostitutes, he gets into drink, and he goes to pieces until finally he gets this dream that he's got to go to the fair and get the very first job he's offered. And he resists it. The dream comes back over and over again, and then finally he goes to this fair, and somebody says, would you like to become I have a herd of cattle, I have to drive cross country, come and be one of my cowboys. So he becomes a cowboy, and he's driving the cattle and two of his cows. He has this very, very cruel cattle driver master whom he's terrified of, and when two of his cattle go running off, escaping into the forest, goes chasing after them, and he gets lost in this primordial forest and gets deeper and deeper following the cattle, deeper and deeper into the forest, totally away from civilization. At night he's terrified by the howling and screaming and shrieking of the wild animals, the birds. He's absolutely terrified by this cacophony. And then at last one day he's in the forest and suddenly he sees a man lying there asleep. And he's terrified that there's anybody else there, but he's delighted he finds somebody there. And he starts talking, "Who are you?" And the guy says, "Well, I'm a guy, I'm a man." "Who are you?" "A man." "How did you get here?" "Well, I was running after my cattle." "How did you get here?" "I was running after my horse." To cut a very long story short, it turns out the other guy who was running after his horse was actually the maidservant's son who became the king, who eventually decided to abdicate because he was so racked with guilt of what he did. And he was on his horse, and the horse ran into the forest, and the two of them meet up, and then they meet the man of the forest. And the man of the forest is clearly not a regular man. His ancestors lived in the forest, and he takes them to his house up in the sky, and there I should have said earlier in the story that actually the king's true son finds in the forest a sack of bread, and since he and the other guy are starving, he's able to make the other guy sell himself to the king's true son in exchange for bread as an eternal slave. And this is the point in the story where everything is rectified, where now the true slave woman's son becomes a slave, and the true king's son becomes the master. But it's the man of the forest who sorts everything out, and the man of the forest gives the true prince an instrument that plays the same sounds of all the animals in the forest, which are actually a most amazing symphony. And here we come into the highly musical element of the story of the exchanged children, that the king's true son discovers that all this terrible cacophony of wild animals is actually the most beautiful song of all the animals that they are singing in honor of the moon. And he has this instrument that can make any animal sing this song. And then the man of the forest sends him off. He says, "You have to go to a certain kingdom, and there you will come to your destiny." And the kingdom is called the kingdom of the foolish king with the wise, over the wise country. And he goes off in search of this country with the foolish king who's king over the wise country, and it's impossible to get in there. And when he gets to the gates, there's somebody on horseback who sees that he has this little instrument, and he says, "What is that?" And the son of the king says, "Well, this enables anything to sing this amazing song." And the man on the horse says to him, "What do you need that for? I can sell you something much more valuable in exchange for that instrument. I will buy the instrument from you in exchange for the ability to understand one thing from another." This is the art of Bina, consciousness, where you're able to understand hints, understand what something is saying from the externals. This was actually an art that Rabbi Nachman cultivated to perfection. From casual conversations he could hear Kabbalistic secrets. So the prince agrees, and then finally he seeks admission to the country, and they tell him, "Don't think that this country is that the king of this country is a foolish